There's a ridge on the side of a mountain in eastern Turkey that has quietly defied explanation for over 6 decades. It sits roughly 18 miles south of Mount Ararat, the legendary peak that most people associate with Noah's Ark, on a smaller, harsher slope called Mount Tenderek. The terrain around it is volcanic. The winters are brutal. The winds come off the Iranian border without mercy. And for most of recorded history, the people living in the valleys below simply pointed at the shape on the hillside above them and called it the ship. They did not call it a geological anomaly. They did not call it an erosion feature. They called it the ship, and they had been calling it that for as long as anyone could remember, long before satellites, long before radar, long before a Turkish army captain named Ilan Durupınar photographed it during a NATO reconnaissance mission in 1951 and changed the conversation forever. That photograph, and the shape it captured from the air, started a debate that has never really ended. From the ground, the formation looks unremarkable, just another ridge in a country full of ridges. From altitude, the outline becomes something else entirely. Long, symmetrical, tapered at both ends, pressed into the slope like something enormous was set down there and simply never moved again. The formation sits at roughly 6,500 feet above sea level and measures 515 feet in length. That number matters. It matches the dimensions of the ark as described in Genesis chapter 6, calculated at 300 Egyptian cubits. The correspondence is precise enough that the first researchers who measured it properly reportedly sat down on the ground and looked at their instruments for a long time before saying anything at all. GreekReporter.com. For decades, serious investigation of the site was hindered by geography, politics, and a lack of the right tools. The region sits close to sensitive borders. Access requires permits. Permits require relationships. For long stretches of the last 40 years, those relationships did not exist. Foreign researchers were turned away. Equipment was impounded. Funding dried up. The mountain kept what was underneath it to itself. But something changed. A new team got access. A new team got equipment in. And that equipment has now delivered data that the researchers themselves describe as unlike anything they were prepared to see. Fox 8. The team operating at the site today is organized under the banner of Noah's Ark Scans, a California-based research initiative led by independent researcher Andrew Jones. Jones has spent nearly 3 decades investigating the Durupınar site in eastern Turkey, with his interest beginning with a 1997 visit, followed by expeditions in 2000 and extensive fieldwork from 2013 onward. He is not an archaeologist by training. He is a software developer. And that background may be exactly why he approached the site differently, not with a shovel, but with instruments. The team he assembled includes archaeologists, soil scientists, geophysicists, and university partners from Turkey and the United States. The Mount Ararat and Noah's Ark research team is a collaboration between Istanbul Technical University, Agri Ibrahim Season University, and Andrews University in the U.S. These are not fringe figures. These are credentialed researchers from accredited institutions. And what they have found beneath the surface of the Durupınar Formation has now been presented at international conferences and published for peer scrutiny. Noah's Ark Scans Greek City Times. The first major instrument they brought to the site was ground-penetrating radar, GPR. This is not a speculative technology. It is used routinely in civil engineering, archaeology, and geology to map what lies beneath the earth without disturbing it. It does not simply detect that something is there. It reads the shape of it, the density of it, the layering of it. When the Noah's Ark Scans team switched on their GPR equipment at the Durupınar Formation and began running passes across the surface, the data came back almost immediately. The scans revealed 3 distinct layers beneath the surface, a detail that mirrors the biblical description of the ark having lower, second, and third decks. This alone would have been remarkable, but the scans revealed more than that. The GPR data showed angular structures as deep as 20 feet below the surface, characteristics that might indicate chambers beneath a deck-like structure. Ancient origins. The scans uncovered evidence of angular structures and a cavity deep inside the mountain. The GPR detected what appeared to be a 13-foot passageway, cutting through the formation center. Jones described the central passage directly. Our new research has shown that there are tunnels about 4 meters down and about 2 meters high, going down the center of the boat and on the inside edge of the hull shape. He went further on the significance of the geometry. We really believe that this layout, showing tunnels and also possible support beams and walls, would suggest that it's a man-made object and not just a natural formation. The distinction matters enormously. Nature produces rounded, irregular, chaotic underground forms. Right angles, parallel corridors, and stacked horizontal layers are the signature of design, not erosion. The Duru-Pinner Formation was producing signatures of design. The California Courier +2. The soil told a parallel story, and in some ways, an even more striking one. The team pulled samples from inside the boundary of the formation and from the slopes immediately around it. 2 patches of dirt on the same mountain, exposed to the same elements, weathered by the same thousands of years, should look essentially identical when analyzed side by side. They did not. Soil samples showed double the organic matter and 40% higher potassium levels inside the formation, consistent with decomposed wood. Soil scientist William Crabtree, a member of the research team, explained the significance of those numbers in plain terms. If you know soil science, as I am a soil scientist, you will understand that potassium levels, organic matter, and pH can all be affected by the decomposition of organic materials. If this was a wooden vessel and the wood had rotted over time, we would expect to see increased potassium levels, changes in pH, and higher organic content. And that's exactly what we find. News target the Jerusalem Post. In 2024, the team collected 88 samples from inside and outside the formation. Soil within the site showed 3 times more organic matter and 38% higher potassium levels compared to soil just outside the boundary. Jones argues that a decayed wooden structure would leave behind exactly this kind of chemical difference over thousands of years. The anomaly extended above the ground as well. The team noticed that the plants growing on the structure are of a different color compared to the surrounding area. Jones suggested this could indicate that the underground structure has a different substrate. When soil chemistry is altered by what lies beneath, the vegetation above it changes in response. The plants on the Duru-Pinner Formation were responding to something that the surrounding mountain was not. GreekReporter.com. The Jerusalem Post. Marine fossils, including coral and shells, were discovered at that altitude, suggesting the area was submerged at some point in history. The mainstream geological explanation is tectonic uplift over millions of years. The research team notes that these fossils nonetheless demonstrate a history of water at elevation, a detail that adds texture to the broader picture, even if it does not resolve the debate. What the debate cannot so easily dismiss is the geometry of the formation itself, the chemistry of its soil, and the growing body of subsurface data pointing to an organized internal structure. Jones has been direct about where the evidence points. I do believe that this is the real decayed, buried remains of Noah's Ark, the famous ship. And we're doing our best to convince the skeptics and show the world this site. GreekReporter.com. The brighter side of news. The skeptics are not silent. Many geologists maintain that the Duru-Pinner Formation is entirely natural. Supporters point to its outline, its size, and its location near Mount Ararat. Many geologists say it is simply a natural formation made of iron-rich limonite. That counterargument has circulated for decades, and it is not without basis. The region is geologically active and volcanic, and unusual landforms are not rare in eastern Turkey. The question the research team is forcing onto the table is not whether unusual shapes can form naturally. They can, but whether this specific combination of shape, internal geometry, soil chemistry, and locational correspondence can be explained by natural processes alone. Jones has challenged the skeptics on exactly this ground. This is not what you'd expect to see if the site were simply a solid block of rock or the result of random mudflow debris. But it is exactly what you'd expect to find if this were a man-made boat, consistent with the biblical specifications of Noah's Ark. The brighter side of news: ancient origins. The next phase of the work is already underway. A new 75 to 100 meter dry sonic core drilling program is recovering continuous, undisturbed stratigraphic cores for the first time, enabling direct geological sampling without invasive excavation. Deep electrical resistivity tomography and audiomagnetotelluric surveys are mapping the deep roots of the formation down to over 300 meters. Specialized robotic cameras are being inserted into subterranean voids and chambers to visually document internal structures. Jones described the purpose of the camera insertion directly. The goal is to insert a camera through a narrow borehole to visually inspect the interior without disturbing the formation. The team is explicit about why they are moving carefully rather than rushing to excavate. Archaeology is destructive. Once material is removed, it cannot simply be put back into place. That is why geophysical scans and core drilling have to come first, with excavation only later if the data justify it. Noah's Ark scans +2. The next phase involves sending a robot into the tunnels to film and collect samples, rather than beginning excavation. The data from those robotic cameras, combined with the core samples and expanded soil analysis, will be fused into what the team describes as a single interactive three-dimensional master model for peer-reviewed analysis. Whatever is inside the Darupinner Formation, natural or constructed, geological accident or ancient vessel, that model will map it with a precision no previous investigation has approached. Fox News. The broader context of this research is one the team takes seriously. This is not merely a question about one religious text. Flood narratives appear in nearly 200 separate cultural traditions across every inhabited continent. The Babylonian epic of Gilgamesh describes a flood survivor named Utnapishtim with instructions and dimensions eerily close to the Genesis account. The British Museum holds a clay tablet describing a circular arc with precise engineering measurements, and when researchers built a scale replica based on those measurements, it floated. The Hindu tradition, the Greek accounts of Deucalion, the traditions of indigenous cultures in the Americas, in Australia, in the Pacific, all of them carry some version of the same core memory. A great water, a vessel, survival, a mountain. The convergence across cultures that had no contact with one another is not easily explained away. The presence of embedded organic materials within the soil suggests the site may once have been submerged, possibly lending credibility to ancient flood narratives. Whether or not the Darupinner Formation is Noah's Ark, it is something. The dimensions match. The internal geometry does not behave like natural rock. The soil chemistry points to a massive organic structure that decomposed in place. The robotic cameras are going deeper, and the data keeps coming back asking the same question the people in the valley below have been asking for generations, looking up at the shape on the slope above them and calling it simply the ship. Fox 8. The next announcement from this site will not come from a press release written in careful, hedged language. It will come from core samples processed in a laboratory. It will come from camera footage recovered from inside the formation. It will come, or it will not, from the kind of evidence that cannot be dismissed by either side of this long and unresolved debate. Until then, the